Good morning and Jai Hind. This is Brigadier Hemant Mahajan, and we meet on another episode of security events that have taken place in and around India, which has an effect on India's national security. Firstly, we face a constant multi-domain war against India. Secondly, there are issues which take place inside the country. And thirdly, there are events which take place all around the world, but it has an effect on India's national security. So we will cover all these topics one after another. The first one is United States is continuing with its test of hypersonic missiles, and its race with China heats up because even China is trying to develop its hypersonic missiles. One must remember hypersonic missiles are very powerful and they are more like intercontinental ballistic missiles, and they can be fired from a distance as far as 3 to 4,000 to 6,000 kilometers. So, and they are very difficult to detect. So therefore, it's a very powerful weapon, and the United States is continuing with the test as far as this missile is concerned. Second is there has been a lot of analysis of Chinese action against India, and the experts have come to a conclusion that the salami slicing tactics which China is doing, there are nearly 12 or 13 rounds of talk that have taken place between India and China's core commanders, and nothing has come out of it. China is still not willing to go back from those two places where it had included. So, what has been the gain as far as China is concerned? India is very clear in its mind, and no less a person than India's Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar has said that the situation on the Chinese border is very tense, and we have been significantly been ramping up our deployment of troops and weapons, given getting ready for the possibility of war. In fact, the standoff between China and India has entered its fifth year, and there seems to be no way out because China is not willing to go out. And the latest was that India raised another core called 18 core. It is converted. It got the Uttar Bharat area into a new core headquarters, which will look after the central sector. So this will improve India's both offensive and defensive capability against China as far as this sector is concerned. And not only that, China has settled down many civilians in the border villages. It is also wrapping up its infrastructure. So therefore, tensions between the two countries show no signs of going down. And India has to be ready to face the Chinese because there are two aspects. One is the capability of the enemy, and second is the intention. As far as capability is concerned, there are more than 1 lakh troops which China has deployed on the border. It has built its infrastructure. So India, therefore, should be ready to face 1 lakh troops should other things go wrong because intentions can change. The next important point is with regard to Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi's visit to Bhutan. The issue is why did the visit take place? Because just before that, for nearly 7 days, the Bhutanese Prime Minister was in India and meeting various dignitaries in the Indian government. The trip was actually very important because while the elections are taking place in India, Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi found the time to go to Bhutan. It was basically to checkmate China because China is trying to goad Bhutan into saying that we will we will resolve the border issue if Bhutan gives away the Doklam Plateau, and this is what not what India requires because Doklam Plateau it dominates the area of Siliguri corridor, so therefore it should not be given to China. The next issue is Pakistan's Gwadar port, in which the Balochistan Liberation Army people have attacked and lot of damages took place. In fact, there have been an increasing number of attacks on Chinese assets. The attacks have been by Balochistan Liberation Army because they feel that China is exploiting resources and it's of Chinese presence in Balochistan or on the China-Pakistan economic corridor or in the Gwadar port is of no use to the locals, but the advantage only goes to China. So therefore, they have been attacking these places. And not only that, there's also happening that the the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan has also been carrying out attacks from their side. So Pakistan at one side is facing the Balochistan Liberation Army. Secondly, it is facing the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Its economy is in doldrums, and the new government doesn't know what is happening. The situation in Pakistan is quite serious, both economically and from the point of view of security. The next issue pertains to South China Sea. There is the opinion in many parts of the world that that United States is not taking out adequate measures to control China in the South China Sea, and China is busy bullying the countries of Southeast Asia into submission. Their latest fighting has been going on with the Philippines. There have been number of incidences in the Philippines between the Philippines and the Chinese Coast Guard, etc. The Chinese Coast Guard has fired water cannons on the Philippines. They dashed their boats against the Philippine boats, and in fact, very recently, the Indian foreign minister was in Philippines, where Philippines was offered all the help so that they could withstand the Chinese pressure properly. So basically, India has taken some bold steps to go to countries which are inimical with China and give a clear message to China that should you act funny with India, we also can play the same game and we will be friendly with countries which are against China. But while this aggressive diplomatic movement of India's foreign minister to Philippines is welcome. Is it going to stop China? The short answer is no. Will the attacks on will the terror attacks on the Chinese assets inside Pakistan will it stop China? Yes, temporarily it has definitely stopped the Chinese because China, which was carrying out construction work at number of places, now has told Pakistan that till the time the security of the Chinese soldiers in Pakistan is not ensured, they are not going to continue with the project. So, to some extent, the CPSU corridor work has come to a halt, and one thing is very clear: the China-Pakistan economic corridor not, not only is it going to create a problem for Pakistan, but it is also going to create a problem for China because China knows it very well that whatever 50 to 60 billion dollars of money which China has invested in Pakistan is of no use. The money is gone forever. So therefore, definitely there is no doubt that China is a big loser as far as China-Pakistan economic corridor is concerned. Let us see what is going to happen in future. The next news is China's trade with the Middle East is increasing, and China is one of the biggest trading partners with most nations in the world. But what is happening now is that China is telling these countries that instead of using the US dollar, please use the local currency. And the Gulf states are doing the balancing act by using Chinese currency as much as possible. So, frankly speaking, if China pushes its own currency and does not use the US dollar, what effect it has on India? The opinion is divided. One thing is definitely clear that dollar, which was dominating the world, its dominance is slowly reducing. Though the dollar will rule the world for many years to come, but that definitely is reducing the importance. Similarly, India is also trying to push its rupee trade with many countries, especially where there are more non-resident Indians, like basically the United States, then Europe, then countries neighboring India, etc., where the trade is now taking place in rupee. So therefore, our dependence on the dollar is being reduced slowly, which is a good thing to happen because it gives you flexibility and you do not depend only on one currency. The Next issue is regard to China's economic influence. One must understand that China has been waging economic war against many countries since a long time because they are the second largest economy in the world, and they use economy as a weapon, trying to force the countries to change their trading policies, trying to buy assets inside those countries, trying to use the money power to change regimes and change whatever is against the Chinese, so that China is looked after only as a friend and not anything else. But just China's economic influence, has it made all the difference? Or is it succeeding? Or is it failing? The opinion is divided. As far as China is concerned, with smaller countries, it has been able to bulldoze them to follow what China is telling them to do. But then these countries have become very suspicious of China. As far as the bigger countries are concerned, they have not been bothered, and they have withstood China, be it countries of Southeast Asia or Australia or India. So, as far as bigger countries are concerned, Chinese economic power has just failed. As far as smaller countries are concerned, these countries are definitely scared of China, so therefore they would not like to do anything which will anger China. But the fact remains that they also know that what China is forcing on them is very, very insulting for their nation's sovereignty. So there are, while Chinese economy is powerful, it is growing quite well, but there are limitations as far as the Chinese economy is concerned. The next issue pertains to India's India's power security or India's electricity security. Now, as far as India is concerned, 60 to 70% of our power is generated from coal. About 10-15% is from renewable sources of energy like the solar, like the wind power, etc. And less than 5% is because of the nuclear power generation. I repeat again, less than 5% is nuclear power generation. Dr. Anil Kapoor, who is a very respected nuclear scientist, who was the chairman of the Indian Atomic Energy Commission, he said that last 20 years, because of the effort put in by the Indian economic scientists, now we have reached a stage where they are where our nuclear reactors will generate more plutonium than it consumes, thereby ensuring that fuel for future reactors is available, and this reduces the issue of storage and treatment of the nuclear waste. Dr. Kakorkar believes that uh, the nuclear energy hasn't received as much support from the government as other sources of energy have got. So he therefore wants government to take care of the nuclear energy and help them by giving them green bonds, etc., as is being done for the renewable source of energy. He feels that India should ramp up its program of nuclear reactors, and currently there are two 1000 megawatt uh, nuclear reactors which are under construction. Dr. Kakorkar is of the opinion that we should scale this quantity to at least six nuclear reactors. So thereby increasing the capacity quite a lot. While what he's saying is right, India has now started using thorium, and India started producing its own plutonium. So India's nuclear program now has reached a turning point where it is able to generate its own plutonium without using without using uranium for nuclear energy. So this success must be built on, and we should ensure that more number of nuclear reactors are built. Now, the two last points are with regard to Philippines. Philippines have been complaining to China that we are using forceful methods such as including into the Philippines economic exclusive economic zone, using water cannons, using coast guard, using fishing armada, So therefore, it wants to improve, improve relationship with India so that it is able to buy weapons, etc. So therefore, the Indian foreign minister, when he went there, one of the talks there was BrahMos missile being offered to Philippines, and the talk is at a very finalized stage, and it is expected that the BrahMos will definitely be given to Philippines. Now, China has been declared as a national security threat as far as the United States and the UK is concerned. Both Britain and the United States have accused China of launching a prolific global campaign of cyber attacks targeting personal information of politicians, journalists, academics, and millions of voters. In an unprecedented joint operation to expose the Chinese espionage, London and Washington have revealed details of a decade-long campaign by China to repress critics, compromise government institutions, and steal trade secrets. I repeat, repress critics, compromise government institutions, and last, steal trade secrets. So therefore, the UK ministers have revealed that China has been successfully gaining access to treasure trove of personal information with the help of cyber attacks on British elections and against the British backdrop. And it has also attempted to spy on MPs which were critical of Beijing. So they have felt that China is a big threat as far as their national security is concerned. India must keep a watch on that because something similar is expected to happen. Another very important news is that the United States and Japan, their prime ministers, are meeting in a less than a month from now, and they have decided that the security pact between them will be reviewed, and it will be the biggest ever security pact between between Japan and United States. One must understand that Japan had deliberately kept its security apparatus at a low level because it did not want to be an aggressive nation. But now Japan is feeling the heat. It faces twin challenges, one from China and second from North Korea. So therefore, they are now regularly increasing their defense budget. They have been doing it for last now few years. And the advantage is that Japan, which was one of the bigger ship builders in the world, has started offering warships for sale to the countries in and around Japan, so that their fighting potential improves. So that's a good thing that any arms given to countries which are inimical to China is always good from our point of view. The next issue is the United States and Japan have decided to upgrade their security pact to the highest possible level. The Moscow shooting, in which a lot of children, women were killed, it shows the failure of Japan's intelligence. Uh, today, correction shows the failure of Russian intelligence. Now, of course, Russia has said that no country today is immune from terrorism, but the fact remains security state has ruthlessly been effective at detaining Putin's opponent, but was caught off guard by a mass shooting near Moscow, raising the questions about its priorities, resources, and intelligence gathering. Basically, the priority, as far as Putin is concerned, is are his own internal enemies. That is number one. Second is Ukraine, and third is everything else. Now, Russia has been making a deliberate effort to track down Ukrainian saboteurs who are inside Russia and keeping the anti-Kremlin activists also in check, etc. But the fact remains that its intelligence failed to find out as to the terror attack which the terrorists launched thereafter near Moscow was never detected because their focus has been on a wrong thing. Now, the two last issues are that there are reports that Ukraine has deployed drones in the air, drones under the sea, but they are also using an armored vehicle which silently went for 2.5 miles before firing 300 bullets at a group of startled Russian soldiers. The vehicle did not have a driver, it did not have a gunner. In fact, it was instead a land drone, an early example of robo-like vehicles that Ukraine is increasingly using to hit the enemy forces. It has also been using them to clear landmines. It has also been using them to rescue injured soldiers. Meaning, the use of drones both in the air, underwater, and on ground is only increasing because Ukraine war has become more like a testing laboratory for all new kinds of weapons. Now, the next issue is the European Union wants to stop all the grain imports that take place from Russia. They want to help out the European farmers. But this also has an effect on India because they're willing to take grains from India. And also, if Russia's grains are not going to be used by anybody else, where will they sell it? So one of the bigger buyers is definitely India. So therefore, India is in a advantageous place. Now, as far as as far as Ukraine war with Russia is concerned, it is more like a stalemate, and it is expected to be one like that for some time to come. However, the irregular attacks are definitely taking place, and they will continue to take place. So, therefore, when we review the situation in and around the world, we find that many countries are fighting with each other. The world is quite turbulent. Nobody can predict as to what is going to happen next. So therefore, India has to keep guard to ensure that its national security is protected. I'll stop here. Thank you and Jai Hind.